Have you ever noticed how some work feels almost unreal, so precise, so refined, that it seems beyond human ability? Throughout history, creations like this were often described as divine. Not because the creators were gods, but because their work carried a sacred level of mastery. Across many cultures, artisans weren't worshipped, but their craft was. Their discipline, their devotion, and the spirit behind their work were deeply respected. Today, things look different. Now, when someone produces work far above average, people don't call it divine, they call it impossible. They say, that doesn't look human, or, there's no way a person made that. In an age shaped by artificial intelligence, excellence itself has become suspicious. But long before machines existed, Japan gave birth to a mindset designed to create exactly this kind of awe. It's called Shokunin Katagi, the craftsman's spirit. And once you truly understand it, mediocrity becomes something you can no longer tolerate in your own life. There is, however, a price. This philosophy demands focus on one path, not many. True excellence is slow. It cannot be rushed. It doesn't arrive in weeks or months. It takes years of repetition, discomfort, and sacrifice. The journey is painful, but the outcome is undeniable. Before we go deeper, take a moment to subscribe and leave a comment below. Which part of your life do you want to master? Your work, your studies, your training? Let me know. If you follow this channel closely, something special is coming soon. Now, let's continue. Chapter 1, The Orphan Feudal Japan. A remote village hidden among mountains. At the edge of the village stood a blacksmith's workshop. Inside, a 16-year-old boy stared at a cold, silent anvil. His name was never recorded. He never became famous. But what he chose to do echoed through generations. 3 weeks earlier, his father had died suddenly from fever. There was no time for final lessons. No chance to pass down the guarded knowledge of the family trade, the techniques that turned plain iron into flawless katanas. The boy was left with 3 younger siblings, a weak mother, no income, and a forge that had gone dark. He faced 2 options. Shut the workshop. Sell the tools. Take whatever work he could find. Or continue alone, without a teacher, without experience, without certainty. Most would have walked away. But something inside him refused to let go. A force he couldn't yet name. A spirit the Japanese would later call Shokunin Katagi. Late one night, while searching the workshop, he discovered a hidden box beneath the floorboards. Inside were old scrolls, yellowed pages covered in his father's handwriting. Detailed diagrams. Temperatures. Hammer angles. Cooling times. Techniques refined over generations. He unrolled the first parchment. He barely understood it. The instructions were complex, technical, overwhelming. Knowledge his father had never fully explained. Yet buried within the confusion was something powerful. A chance. That night, the boy made a decision that defined his entire life. He didn't decide to try making swords. He decided to become a blacksmith. The difference is everything. Trying can be abandoned. Being cannot. On his father's parchment, he wrote a vow, I am a blacksmith. I will forge perfect katanas. I will honor this lineage. He signed the vow and placed the scroll on the family altar. It wasn't a promise. It was an identity. In Japan at that time, an identity could not be broken without consequence. To abandon your word meant disgrace. A scholar from Kyoto University, who spent decades studying samurai culture, once explained it this way, in feudal Japan, your word was not just your honor, it was your existence. To break it was to disappear socially. That pressure didn't weaken people. It forged them. The next morning, at 4 before sunrise, the furnace was lit. He lifted a bar of metal. And began. The first blade was a disaster. The steel split. The edge twisted. Hours of labor, ruined. The second attempt was worse. The blade snapped in half during tempering. Third. Fourth. Fifth. An entire week passed without a single usable sword. The family survived on plain rice and the rare fish he managed to catch. This is the point where most people stop. This is where a normal person says, I don't have the talent. This was a mistake. I should quit. But the boy never thought that way. Because he had grasped something essential about Shokunin Katagi that most never do. It was never about fast results. It was about respecting every attempt. Chapter 2, The Spirit Awakens. He stopped trying to make swords quickly. Instead, he treated every failure like a question. Why did the metal crack? The heat was wrong. He wrote it down. He tested different temperatures. He watched the steel change color as it heated. dull red, deep red, orange, yellow. Each shade carried information. Why did the blade curve? The hammer angle. Before striking metal again, he practiced the motion in the air, hundreds, sometimes thousands of times. He studied how the hammer fell, how his wrist turned, how his shoulders aligned. Soon, he was waking at 3 in the morning. Not from discipline. From obsession. He couldn't sleep while yesterday's mistakes were still unanswered. Before dawn, the village heard the anvil sing. Every day. No exceptions. Rain. Cold. Sickness. The sound never stopped. People whispered, "That boy has lost his mind. He doesn't have his father's gift." Good. Every word became fuel. By the 6th week, he was stuck on one problem. Cooling. He had tried it hundreds of times, heating the blade, plunging it into water to harden it. Every attempt ended the same way, a cracked sword. The scrolls gave only one instruction: immerse the blade when the steel reflects the color of the setting sun. But what color was that, exactly? Orange? Red? Pale yellow? For 3 full days, he stopped forging entirely. He heated metal and did nothing else. He watched. He studied. He felt. On the 4th day, it happened. He didn't see it with his eyes. He recognized it with something deeper. The moment revealed itself. Not through rules, through connection. He plunged the steel into the water. The sound was different. The steam rose differently. Something had changed. When he lifted the blade from the water, it was flawless. No fractures. No warping. Smooth. Resilient. Alive. In that moment, he uncovered the first true lesson of Shokunin Katagi: you don't conquer a craft. You merge with it. But this is where the story turns darker, because one perfect sword meant nothing. He didn't need to succeed once. He needed to succeed every time. Day after day. Without excuses. And that demanded a level of devotion most people are unwilling to give. From that blade onward, he didn't rely on luck or inspiration. He built a ritual. Not a routine. A ritual. Every morning at exactly 3:30, he rose. No bargaining. No delay. Tired. Sick. Freezing. The hour was untouchable. First, he cleaned the workshop. Every tool returned to its place. Every surface cleared. Not for appearance, but because disorder in the space becomes disorder in the work. Precision begins with environment. Next, he lit the furnace the same way every time. The same amount of charcoal. The same arrangement. Because inconsistency creates uncertainty, and uncertainty destroys mastery. Then came silence. 30 minutes of stillness. Watching the fire. Scenting his mind. Preparing his intention. Only then did he touch the metal. People mocked him. Why waste so much time preparing? You could be making more swords. More money. But they didn't understand what he did. Speed destroys excellence. Volume dilutes quality. He wasn't trying to produce many swords. He was crafting each one as if it were the final blade of his life. A master blacksmith once said something that captures this perfectly: when you rush your work, you disrespect the material. Steel remembers. A sword forged without care will fail when it's needed most. 3 months passed. His blades were no longer experiments, they were reliable. Strong. Worth buying. Local samurai began to seek him out. The workshop lived again. The family ate well. And this is where most people would stop. It's good enough. It works. Why push further? But he couldn't stop. Because good enough burned like an insult inside him. He started seeing what others missed. The precise curve of the blade. The rhythm in the folded steel. The balance between weight and control. The finish of the handle in the palm. A sword no longer took days. It took weeks. Tested. Adjusted. Tested again. One samurai complained, "Why does it take so long? The blacksmith in the next village finishes in 3 days." The boy replied calmly, "Then buy from him. And when his blade breaks in battle, don't blame me." The samurai bought the sword. He never bought from anyone else again. There's something important to understand here. The pursuit of excellence does not mean destroying your health. It does not mean abandoning your family. And it does not mean being perfect at everything. No one is. True mastery is selective. Focused. Intentional. You choose what deserves your highest standard, and you honor it fully. Perfectionism paralyzes you. Excellence liberates you. The pursuit of excellence teaches one essential truth: before you can master anything, you must willingly become a student. Again and again. The heart of this message is simple: be excellent in what truly matters. Be excellent in your IQ, the one path that deserves your deepest focus. Chapter 3, Total Transformation. 90 minutes after dawn, someone important arrived. Not an ordinary samurai, but a commander. A man who had handled hundreds of swords. A man whose survival depended on steel that never failed. He had heard rumors about the young blacksmith. He didn't believe them. A boy who taught himself. Impossible. He entered the workshop without announcing himself. It was barely 4 a.m. What he saw stopped him cold. The boy was polishing a blade, but not the visible edge. He was carefully refining the inner fitting, a section hidden once the sword was assembled. A part no one would ever see. The commander asked, "Why waste time perfecting something invisible?" The boy didn't hesitate. "Because I see it. And if I know it's flawed, I can't deliver it. Whether you notice or not doesn't matter. I know." Silence filled the workshop. Then the commander smiled. "Forge my sword," he said. "And don't rush a single step." It took 3 months. Not because the work was slow, but because it was deliberate. He wasn't simply crafting a weapon. He was shaping an extension of another man's life. Every strike of the hammer became focused intention. Every curve of the steel, a careful decision. Every polishing, an act of respect. When the blade was finished, it wasn't just effective, it was alive. Perfectly balanced, it seemed to float in the hand. The edge was so refined it could slice silk suspended in air. The folded steel formed patterns like frozen waves. The commander held it, and felt something he never had before. Not power. Presence. He felt the blacksmith in the blade. Every hour. Every choice. Every silent correction. Then he said words that reshaped the boy's destiny. "This sword isn't just mine. This sword is you. And I will take you into battle with me." The story spread fast. Within 6 months, samurai from distant regions traveled to that village. Not to buy weapons, but to commission masterpieces. They waited patiently. For months. Because everyone knew the truth, this blacksmith didn't produce swords. He forged legacies. Here's what no one tells you about excellence. When you reach that level, when your standards become unbreakable, something changes inside you. You stop being someone who does excellent work. You become someone who is excellence. It's no longer an action. It's an identity. Chapter 4, The Pillars of Shokunin Katagi. This isn't just a story meant to inspire you. It's a blueprint. A system for becoming unstoppable. Principle 1, Irreversible commitment to quality. The blacksmith never asked, "Will anyone notice?" He asked, "Is this right?" He refined details hidden from the world because excellence was never about approval. When you embody Shokunin Katagi, you don't work to impress. You work because delivering something careless feels unbearable. Mediocrity doesn't disappoint you. It physically repels you. And once you reach that point, there is no going back. Pause for a moment and think honestly. How many times this week did you deliver something that was just acceptable? How many times did you cut a corner because it's fine? How many times did you stop at 80% when you knew you could reach 100%? Every time you do that, you're not just saving effort, you're training your mind. You're teaching yourself that average is acceptable. And slowly, without noticing, you don't become mediocre because you lack skill, but because you've practiced settling for less. Principle 2, Absolute responsibility. When a blacksmith's blade failed, he didn't blame the steel. He didn't blame the weather. He didn't blame the absence of a teacher. He said, "I made the mistake. I will correct it." That mindset is power. Because the moment you take full responsibility, you also take full control. Mediocre people search for excuses. Shokunin search for answers. Mediocre people say, "It wasn't my fault." Shokunin say, "It's my duty to fix it." Here's the paradox most people miss. The more responsibility you accept, the more powerful you become. Why? Because you stop relying on circumstances, and start relying on yourself. Psychologists who study elite performance have found that what separates the top performers from everyone else isn't intelligence, talent, or luck. It's a belief system. The belief that outcomes are shaped primarily by your own actions, not by external forces. Principle 3, Endless humility. Even after becoming the finest blacksmith in the region, the boy never stopped learning. He kept studying the scrolls. He kept experimenting. He kept questioning his own work. A true shokunin never says, "I already know enough." The deeper his mastery grew, the more aware he became of how much there still was to learn. And that realization wasn't discouraging, it was freeing. Because excellence doesn't require perfection today. It only requires progress. The ego says, I'm already good enough. The craftsman spirit says, I can be better. Ego freezes growth. Shokunin Katagi releases it. Principle 4, process above outcome. The blacksmith wasn't obsessed with selling swords. He was obsessed with each strike of the hammer. Each breath. Each moment of the work. Because he understood something fundamental, the quality of the result can never exceed the quality of the process. When you live by Shokunin Katagi, the process isn't a step toward something else. The process is the point. Every action is treated as meaningful. Every movement matters. And when you work that way, results stop being something you chase. They arrive naturally, because excellence makes them unavoidable. Chapter 5, applying this to your life. You might be thinking, this sounds inspiring, but I don't forge swords. That's exactly the point. Shokunin Katagi applies to everything. If you're a programmer, treat every line of code like a hammer strike. Don't write code that merely functions. Write code that is clean, thoughtful, and elegant, even in the parts no one else will ever see. If you're a designer, treat every pixel as sacred. Don't aim for good enough. Aim for harmony, precision, and intention. Because true quality lives in details people don't consciously notice, but instinctively feel. If you work in customer service, treat every interaction as if it matters deeply. Not because someone is watching, but because it's the right standard to hold. Shokunin Katagi isn't about your profession. It's about how you show up. It's about caring, deeply, consistently, and without compromise. That there's one more thing that needs to be said. Before excellence appears, mistakes are unavoidable. In the story you heard today, before the blacksmith ever created masterpieces, he ruined blade after blade. Useless steel. Failed attempts. Disappointment after disappointment. That wasn't failure. That was training. So respect the process. Mistakes are not a detour, they are the road. You don't improve in comfort. You improve in the arena. Excellence is born where theory meets repetition. So stay calm, my friend. This is not a race. It's a journey. You are growing. You are moving forward. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. What matters most isn't how fast you move. What matters is that you don't stop. But here's the truth most people miss: intention alone is not enough. You cannot live by Shokunin Katagi without structure. The blacksmith didn't wake up when he felt motivated. He woke up at 3:30 every morning, without exception. The time was sacred. You need the same principle. Choose a fixed time for your most important work. Not when you feel inspired. Not when it's convenient. A fixed time. Non-negotiable. Why? Because every time you debate your schedule, you waste mental energy, energy that should be spent creating. Fixed hours remove decision fatigue. Fixed hours create automatic action. You don't need to wake up at 3:30. But you do need a set time that your brain recognizes as the moment excellence begins. The blacksmith also had a preparation ritual. Cleaning the space. Lighting the furnace. Silence. Focus. The same sequence, every day. You need a ritual too. It can be simple. Coffee. Specific music. 5 minutes of breathing. What matters isn't complexity, it's consistency. The ritual tells your brain, now is the time to work at my highest standard. And now, the principle that separates the top 1% from everyone else. Consistency without gaps. The anvil rang every single day. Sick. Exhausted. Doubtful. Why? Because he understood something most people don't: a gap kills momentum. A gap invites mediocrity back in. You don't need to give 100% every day. But you do need to give something every day. Exhausted? Give 20%. Traveling? Give 30%. Sick? Give 10%. Just don't disappear. Because consistency, even at low intensity, keeps your inner engine alive. If life truly knocks you off for a day, don't spiral. No guilt. No self-punishment. Just return the next day. Excellence isn't fragile, but momentum is. Chapter 6, the final transformation. 20 years passed. The boy was no longer young. But every morning at 3:30, the hammer still met the anvil. He trained his children. But he didn't begin with technique. He began with spirit. Because technique without spirit creates empty products. But spirit combined with technique creates legacy. And that is the true end of Shokunin Katagi. You don't just do excellent work. You become the kind of person whose presence elevates everything you touch. His children grew up hearing the same lesson: We don't make swords. We shape extensions of the soul of the person who will carry them. Every detail matters. Every moment matters. Because this work is not about us, it's about the one who will depend on it. That workshop survived for generations. Never the largest. Never the fastest. But always the most trusted. Because Shokunin Katagi was never about being first. It was about becoming untouchable. And here's what will happen when you start living this way. People will find you strange. They'll ask, why do you care so much? Why don't you just relax? Why are you so intense? But you won't be doing it for them. You'll be doing it because you've discovered the truth. Excellence isn't about impressing anyone. It's about giving your best, even when no one is watching. When Shokunin Katagi truly takes root, delivering something careless feels physically uncomfortable. Not because of fear of judgment, but because you know it wasn't worthy of your standard. And once that transformation is complete, something remarkable happens. You stop competing with others. You only measure yourself against who you were yesterday. You stop craving recognition. Because you gain something far more valuable, unshakable self-respect. You stop relying on motivation. Because excellence becomes your default. You simply cannot do it any other way. So the question remains, are you ready to pursue that level of excellence? Because Shokunin Katagi is not a trick. It's not a shortcut. It's not a productivity hack. It's an identity shift. One that takes time. One that demands patience. One that begins the moment you decide mediocrity is no longer acceptable. It's choosing to treat every task, every project, every moment as something that matters. The young blacksmith had no teacher. No money. No advantage. But he had Shokunin Katagi. And that was enough to transform an orphan boy into a master whose work outlived him. You have the same choice. The same potential. The only question is this: will you take the comfortable road of average, or the demanding path of excellence? Because there is no neutral ground. You are either improving or declining. You are either sharpening yourself, or dulling your edge. You are either becoming a craftsman of your life, or just another passerby. And when you choose excellence, when you truly embody Shokunin Katagi, people will judge you. That's normal. And you'll smile. Because you'll finally be who you were meant to become. If this video helped you understand excellence on a deeper level, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Remember, excellence is not a single act. It's a habit. And every habit begins with a choice. Thank you for staying until the end. Be present. Walk with honor. Stay on the path. Until the next video.